All right, I'll introduce the next speaker right here. Our next speaker is the other half of the Polish team. Marcin Kiedrzyński is a plant ecologist and associate professor at the University of Łódź in Poland. He's been head of the Laboratory of Plant Ecology and Adaptation since 2015. Is former head of the Landscape Protection Society. He was a laureate of the BGF Scientific Research Day Scholarship. He's a member of the International Association of Vegetation Science, the International Biogeographical Society, and the Polish Botanical Society. His scientific interests include plant responses to environmental change, processes of diversification and adaptations in plants, and protection of plant genetic resources. His research also focuses on development of nature conservation systems by practical action plans. Martin, where are you? Oh, he's right up there. Welcome.
Thank you very much. First of all, I, of course, have to say many thanks for Professor Mitch and his wife for a very friendly support and welcome in United States. So thank you, Professor. So I'm a botanist, I'm plant ecologist, so on this point of view maybe was much bigger in my presentation. I came from University of Łódź and the Laboratory of Plant Ecology and Adaptation, in which I lead by now. So we're living in a human epoch, yes, and thus changes which human do in the earth, landscape change, biogeochemical cycles changes or climate change affects that we have huge habitat loss, the 6 species mass extinction, and general eutrophication of environment, land environment and water environment. And one of the most significant view, most popular, most media popular effect is algae bloom, is very harmful for our health and for environment. Before I show you some examples from Poland, let me know some a few words about the in defense of cyanobacteria, because now these organisms and algae also do not have a good press and it's normal in that situation when we have harmful algae and cyanobacteria blooms. But we can remember that this is not the fault of cyanobacteria, it's not the fault of algae, it's rather our fault to make this toxic blooms. Dr. Lee showed about this similar picture about that cyanobacteria could be very beautiful and different morphological diversity have. We also can remember that this organism as during the origin of the life in our planet it was very important to give our opportunity to develop the life on land. Yes, finally they give them our opportunity to our life on the earth. So and they also they only nowadays just made great use of ecological niches created by us by changing landscape, changing geological cycles and climate change. So this is our fault, not cyanobacteria. Now I'm taking you to the Baltic Sea catchment from the Great Lakes area to the Baltic Sea in the central and northern part of Europe. We also have you seen in a data presentation about the algae bloom problems from Baltic Sea. My focus is also on the Pilica River catchment, is the tributary of the main river which flows from Poland, is the Vistula River, and the biggest left tributary is the Pilica River. So many part of our country is the agriculture, and 60% of phosphorus, 70% of nitrogen load to the Baltic Sea originates from non-point sources. So this is the problem also in Pilica River catchment. This is the Pilica. The picture was taken in 1969 by botanist Professor Hereźniak. It's very nice picture for me. It's the central part of the Pilica River catchment. It's the Sulejów town. It shows how the people connect and enjoy with the rivers when the water is clean. Yes, people and especially kids in that time very enjoyed to swim and make play in nearby this river. A very nice picture. I can show you also about wetlands and disappearing of wetlands in the center part of this catchment. You have seen a comparison done both by Professor Olaczek and collaborators, which is a result of compare with different maps, old maps and current maps. They discovered that during this period, a few decades, yes, we have dramatic change in the area of wetlands in this part of catchment. We have seen some disappearing wetlands in here. This is the first main change in wetlands in this part of catchment. I can show you some examples. This is the Brudzewice swamps. It's the one example of this disappearing wetlands during that time. This is the picture from the old map from the 19th century, and the second half of the 20th century. Many dishes and draining of these wetlands, these swamps were done. So now we have a problem to keep water in the landscape, especially in the upper part of the landscape, and some general systematic program will start and go on. And one of that program is financed, and investor is the National Forestry Company. Is many very small water reservoirs to keep water in the landscape. This is the one of that projected small water reservoir. But sometimes the problem with that investment, very important in environment, very important in keeping water in landscape, is location of this small reservoir. Because if we have done some ecological evaluation of that project, we can see that this projected place is just in the place where they're growing old-growth riparian woods, and also very important protected and rare plant and animal species. So this is very important part of whole project, to make ecological evaluation, make wetlands vegetation as informatics, where we have huge biodiversity areas where this small reservoir can be built. So we propose After that, we proposed changing the location of this reservoir, and this is this is that picture. We changed this from that place nearby the projected place, and this is no old growth forest and no protected species. So the first role of the vegetation of because it's the simplest that the animal to the know how the condition, ecological condition is the in environment, to make us the information where we could start the new investment in environment. The second one, big change in this part of Pilica River catchment was the building of creating of new reservoir. You can see in here, yes, in the only river, and this is a big new reservoir. This is the picture during that time, 1973. This is the construction of the reservoir, and the current days, 2050, looks like this reservoir and the dam of this reservoir. And also after that we have algae bloom problem in Sulejów Reservoir. This is quite shallow reservoir. The mean deep of this reservoir is only 3 meters. Is 10 feet, yes, I think. So the problem is the catchment is quite agricultural, but also the forests are there. You can see that this the mixed landscape, part of agriculture and some part of forest. So the Professor Zarewski and his team proposed some many solutions, hydrological solutions to change that situation in the Sulejów Reservoir. We can see many things that enhance nutrient trapping on floodplains, on buffer strips, and so on and so on. But another very important job what we can do in that situation is to the first one, I think, is to make effort to conservation the natural wetlands in that area. Yes, is the job that I enjoyed for a few years ago. This is the one of the part of the Pilica River. It looks very nice. Some parts are very natural yet. So after many years of effort, according to Polish law, many nature conservation areas were created in this part of Pilica River Vara. You can see mostly the yellow color is the boundary of the 3 landscape parks along the Pilica River. You can see Szedbrus Landscape Park, Sulejów Landscape Park, and Spawa Landscape Park. This name came from the small towns. But the newest one, after the Poland came to the European Union, is the established of the Natura 2000 network. After the European Union Habitat Directive, is the job which we do a few years ago. Is the example of the Black River area, the biggest right tributary of the Pilica River. You can see we spent many time in fields to delimit this area, delimit the boundary of the protected areas. Yes, and inside these areas, this boundary of the protected areas is in red, but the yellow color is the patches of very important habitats, mostly wetland habitats inside this area. So the many hours in the field to make this job. And finally, we produce some textbook about this Natura 2000 network in our region. So the conservation effort in this area is very good. So and the next step is to find some ecological solutions which use this natural potential to enhance nutrient trapping on floodplain, or maybe also on ecotones. One of this in this goal, one of the most interesting area is the section of 40 kilometers above the Soleilów Reservoir. It's 24 miles. Very natural part of the Pilica River Valley, very natural. And we see that on this section, the reduction of the concentration in water, the phosphorus, total phosphorus, was the 46%. So if we remember that the 1 kilogram of the phosphorus can lead to 1 or 2 ton algae blooms in the reservoir, so this part of the valley is very important to reduce this maybe these algae blooms in the Soleilów Reservoir. First of all, we make the detailed map of vegetation types, vegetation communities in this part of the valley. It's also a good field or GIS job came from field studies and connected with the aerial photographs. You can see the distribution of the wet meadows and riparian and bog forest in this part of floodplain area. And I was shown by Edita. Our study concentrate first for the small part of this area, 26 hectares, and we result that this part of upper the Soleilów reservoir is very important for the accumulation of phosphorus, much for 250 kilogram phosphorus only on that one part of this floodplain. Is very big job for the wetland vegetation here. The second one topic is the second one focus on that one type of vegetation was the focus on the riparian willow vegetation. The first one aim is to estimate how is the area of these communities along this section of the valley is about 30 hectares, and then we collect some samples to know what is the accumulation of phosphorus in the stem of this plant. And we also measure the total biomass is above 800 total ton of dry biomass, and we also estimate the total phosphorus accumulation in this part of the section by this willow shrubs is above the 430 kilometers phosphorus. And we also estimate the scenario if we will cut in some part of this section, cut these communities, cut and remove biomass from that places, we can reduce phosphorus by cutting the willow shrubs on 230 kilometer phosphorus. So this is also the big job for this plant for this willow plant for us to reduct nutrients in this part of the valley. And the next one studies focus on a small part of the valley in the river buffer zone. Is the buffer zone with the different type of communities, plant communities, which is with different stages of succession. Yes, we have here wet meadows, thickets with willows and another species, hardwood maybe, and part of the forest, riparian forests. And we also take some samples from that places, take biomass, plant biodiversity here, and the main topic is also the analysis of the groundwater above these patches of vegetation. You can in this place is the annual changing of the nitrogen concentration in the groundwater. One of the visible result is the increase of the nitrogen rapid after the fertilization of meadows by farmers. So this is very evident increase and peaks where the farmers get fertilization of these meadows. And also in the phosphorus you can see these peaks, but it's smaller. But during that time also the trees are cutting a few trees from this place, and after that we can see that the very high increase of phosphorus in the groundwater under this forest area. So the plant communities in different stages of succession are very important and diverse, temporary diverse nutrients absorbers during this valley also. So we can see that the different types of vegetation during that valley, rushes, thickets, forests, keep us this very important, do the very important job for us. And they work in both, in protect the biodiversity and to allow this us to Habitat Directive, European Union Habitat Directive, and also Water Framework Directive, also European Union Directive. So the protection and management of this vegetation during the floodplain in the Pilica River is good for the conservation and also for the water quality protection. Is the our publication about that. And the last one is about the ecological engineering. Let us show just this example about one of the Rospsha town wastewater treatment. Is this that way? And this was built the system of biofiltration. And the last one part of this system was the plant communities, constructed wetlands, and we see that this is the 4 main plant species planted here, and we can see that this reduction is mostly the part where the wetlands were created. The 5 to 8 point of monitoring is where the part of this system where the constructed wetlands are. In reduction of organic matter and total matter, and also you can see the part with the wetlands are constructed wetlands for the phosphorus and nitrogen is also very important part of this system of treatment of wastewater treatment. Yes, Finally, wetland vegetation can act as informants, as service providers, as workers in constructed wetlands, and also they can do this in different kind of catchments, natural and also more anthropogenic landscape. So the society, as published by Professor Mitch, should give chance to nature to do this job everywhere, which could be done. A few remarks in the end. So the preserved wetlands are very smart workers in the case of improved water quality, but mostly they have small areas, the preserved natural wetlands. So we need to restoration of wetlands, but we also need to this job for the natural or restored wetlands to improve by connected by reduction of pollution at sources in agriculture and wastewater. So in this issue in agriculture is very for me very good and idea presented for Professor Mitch this morning and collaborators about the water wetland culture. Is very interesting job for this point of this whole reduction and water quality improvement. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have time for a few questions.
In your riparian willow experiments, you harvest nutrients, manage the floodplain better. When you harvest those willow, or do you harvest those willow for commercial value in Poland?
Commercial value of willow, yes?
Yeah, of the woody plant, is there value in Poland?
The willow are also planted for the biomass and making the power from the fire, the biomass of willow. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you haven't done any work on that yet? No. Okay. You might consider that. The lignocellulosic, fast growing. The other question, when you plant the riparian willow, are there other plants included in that, or is it a monoculture?
This willow are natural. We are not planted them. This natural communities, which is typical for that part of Pilica River Valley. So this is not planted willows, only natural part. So that's patches of willow communities are protected also, but by biodiversity reason. So it's quite hard to manage them because one reason is biodiversity. We can protect some nests built by birds here. So if you can cut this willow, you should do only in winter's time, yes? Mm-hmm. So the communities play different role, biodiversity and also water protection.
Thank you.